What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast. Brian is back from Las Vegas. The round of 8 rolls on as we head to Homestead, Miami. The Kevin Harvick celebration obviously got the Budweiser car out for him. We'll talk about how Vegas went from both DraftKings and betting. We'll talk. We'll spin it forward. Look at Homestead. We'll talk about Kyle Larson's price and if you should even consider it at this point. All that and more on today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining back from Vegas. How did Sin City treat you both physically and in your pocketbook?
Well, physically, it was fine. Like I've said this before, I don't do Vegas the same way as most other people, and because I was actually at the track Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for basically the entirety of all those days, I didn't really have the energy to do anything other than go home, have a beer, have dinner, and then go right to bed. Yeah. But overall, it was a great experience. It's quite different seeing a race from like behind the curtain as it is from being in the stands from a fan's perspective, but it was an awesome experience. Hopefully I'll be able to get to do it again, get a little more active with what I'm doing there too. And then, if we can get both of us there, maybe we could record a show from there. We could record videos. Like it's an awesome way to actually cover the sport, and definitely something that, I look forward to doing in the future.
Like Kevin Garnett said, anything is possible. We'll see what we can do. Yeah, it looked like an incredible experience. Obviously, it's cool to be on the other side, to be able to talk to some of the drivers and the pit crew and get that going. And I think doing Vegas the way you do Vegas, it makes it a lot more feasible to do it on a regular basis, to do it for a few more days. Because if you do the strip thing and you're drinking 24/7,
I would not survive. Let's just say
2 days is like the maximum. But if you do it the way you did it, spend time at the track, it ends up making things okay. Let's recap the week that was. I'll present the screen. I am extremely annoyed with Vegas, a track that I love, a track that traditionally have done very, very well at. Lots of red for both of us. Bubba Wallace, shouts to Bubba Wallace, who, despite looking great, all practice and qualifying, ends up finishing 13th. Byron finished 7th at a top 5 on him. Logano was the top Ford. He was not really that guy, so I'm okay with that one. That was more of a longer shot. Chastain over Brad K. Of course, Brad K destroyed us. We talked about it all week. We're both fading him, so of course he was gonna pop up, have an amazing race, and finish 4th, one spot in front of the aforementioned Ross Chastain. We'll talk Denny here in a second. I want to pick your brain. Burton over Haley, plus 175. Thank you very much.
At least Bubba, somebody has some green. That's
Bubba over Busher. Busher finished 11th, of course. RFK looking really good. Prace over Cindric. Of course, Cindric does just a little bit better. So it was just a frustrating week. It feels like if I needed a guy to finish 10th, he finished 11th. If I needed a guy to finish 5th, he finished 6th or 7th. If I needed a guy to win a head-to-head, he had a great race, but the guy that he was head-to-head with would have a little bit better of a race. So, I don't mind losing, especially when I'm clearly on the wrong side, but I felt like I was so close to having a really strong week and didn't work out. I was
going to say, I think definitely our biggest, and a lot of other people in the industry, a lot of other smart people in the industry's biggest miss was definitely Brad Keselowski. He didn't look good in practice, and then all of a sudden come Sunday, he was able to manufacture a good track position. Who would have guessed it? And then he was able to stay there, and he actually battled for the lead at some points in the race, and he was extremely difficult to pass. So that was definitely the biggest miss. Of course, Ryan freaking Blaney, he looked fantastic. To me, he had quite possibly the best long run speed from just watching it on the track. He was, he got mired back in traffic because of a pit pit road snafu again. Like dude just has no luck there, but he was still able to manufacture a good race. And then you have the whole thing of him being disqualified, and then NASCAR actually realizing that it was their template that effed up. Yeah, what a interesting weekend. I'm glad that Blaney didn't get penalized for something they probably didn't do on purpose, or it was even wrong for that nature. And then honestly, I feel like the biggest mistake in bet was the Chase Elliott top 10.
He was just bad all day.
Bad.
Wormy was on the NASCAR betting preview show. I highly recommend checking that out if you missed it. Talked a little bit about Keselowski, and he just manufactured a way to get to the front. And once he was there, he had enough speed to hang with those guys and what he needed to do. So, he's really he basically Joey Logano'd his way to the front and stayed up there all day. We all got smoked thanks to Brad. We also all got smoked thanks to Bubba. So just a rough week, and then putting them both head to head, that's just not going to work. Luckily, I listened to the pre-race poll. I listened to Chris Wormy talk about how Larson was going to dominate the race. I couldn't bet him to win stage 1 at like even money, basically. But stage 2, he was like 3-1. So I grabbed some of that, and it salvaged my weekend. So
I was also able. I got Larson live at 4-1 at some point in the race when he was. It was during one of the long runs where Christopher Bell and Brad Keselowski were out front by a couple of seconds, and I was like, "Oh, this number is way too good to pass up." So that did salvage my weekend.
Yeah, I'm always a little gun shy with live bets, just because sometimes I get a little too big for my britches and think I've got it all figured out, and then I end up looking like a dummy. But Larson's clearly somebody that you can jump on. Let's review some of these DraftKings lineups before we spin it forward. So this one had some pieces. I think you obviously needed Larson. He was really, really good. Chase Elliott, stinker. 55% of the field had him, and he was just not good. Chastain was great. Pulled the top 5, looked really, really fast. LaJoy was solid. Burton was solid for 2 back markers, and then Byron and Reddick were okay. You want a little bit more for the salary you paid, but that's okay. This is the one that had Larson, so obviously that was a smash. Also had Chastain, also had Daniel Suarez. Shouts to Trackhouse. We'll spin that forward and talk about them, because Suarez, starting 36, ends up finishing 15th. Looks really good.
And that was in the backup car too, so they were good as a team.
Yep. And Carson Hocevar, I think, would have had a nice finish had he not wrecked. We talked a little bit about him and kind of his upside going forward. Like, he's somebody that's fast and looks really good. He's going to have to kind of figure out the actual race day minutia and not make so many mistakes. But if he can keep the car on the track, he's going to have a bright future in NASCAR. And then another lineup I built, we did the Bell thing. Bell was really good all day. I was really impressed with him from start to finish. Obviously had a good race, was able to stay near the front the whole day. Burton LaJoy, I just basically pivoted to Bell instead of Larson. So pretty solid day. But yeah, not the cashing day I wanted, but that's okay.
And what's interesting about Bell, I wanted to say, so a lot of us in the media center, when there was like 16 to go or whatever it was, and you could tell Bell had cut the lead and he was clipping off like 2/10 every single lap, we were all like, damn, he's going to get there, whether it's like a lap to go or on the last lap. And we were just questioning whether or not Larson could hold on to the lead, because the narrative about Kyle Larson, you've heard the aforementioned Chris Wormy talk about it, is he folds under the pressure, and you kind of figured Bell was going to get there. And Bell, to me, was probably the best car all day. And lo and behold, he got there, but Larson threw the block and Bell didn't spin him, which maybe could come back to bite him in the ass, when you look at it for playoff futures, championship hopes. But that definitely, not to get too elaborate here, I think that definitely helps Bell going forward into further seasons. Like, Larson's probably going to look at that and be like, yo, this guy, he didn't wreck me when he probably should have to win this race. And maybe he'll repay the favor whether that's this week in Homestead, Bell's got a fast car, or if that's next season. But yeah, definitely gaining those, I guess in like NASCAR 05 terms, hero points, will play to Bell's favor in the future.
Damn well Denny would have put him in the wall if he had the
Oh,
chance.
Denny would have sent him to Denny would have sent him through the solar eclipse.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anybody else, like any of the veterans, would have said, "Get the F out of my way. I'm turning you to win this race."
It would have been really interesting to see if there was like a wreck towards the end and we got overtime, if Chris Bell could have passed him. But once Larson gets that lead, and if he can maintain it, it's really hard for him to pass. So
yeah,
a lot to unpack there. So let's roll this forward because we have some stuff to talk about, Brian, including Kyle Larson inside 3-1 basically everywhere. He's around even money or plus 140 to win the NASCAR championship, which seems aggressive. Given we'll get to Phoenix, he's got to be at least 250, at least 2-1. Like you got to get a better number than that. So that's interesting to think about. A lot to unpack this week. Obviously, another intermediate track, so there's stuff there. There's also a lot of Darlington and Auto Club corollaries with the high tire wear. A lot to think about. I was looking back at Auto Club. Auto Club feels like it was 10 years ago at this point. Like it feels so long ago that I was trying to figure out how much of it I really want to think about, because like the names that popped up there haven't really been in the conversation. So I guess before we get into anything, how are you thinking about the race this week?
Yeah, so I'm definitely weighing current form way more heavily than what we saw in the first month or two of the season because, Auto Club, we didn't get practice, we didn't get qualifying. Teams just unloaded with what they had, and that's what they had to run that day. And I think everybody would agree that even throughout the 2023 season, we've seen teams, make so many adjustments. You've seen guys have the ebb and flow of a season, and guys have. They had speed during the summer. They don't have speed now. They had speed in the spring. They didn't have speed in the summer. They got speed in the fall, or vice versa. Like, I don't think you can really look at anything that happened early on in the year and have that correlate to much that's happening at this moment. So for me, it's more so who's doing good right now, who has speed, and then also taking into account, less who has done well at this track in the past. But something that crossed my mind during the NASCAR betting preview show, and I wanted to ask the question on there, I just didn't get it in. I'm just really curious if the fact that that Homestead is a playoff race, if that affects drivers' like motivations and who is good and who isn't, and because of the finishing results here, and if there are guys that maybe who are traditionally in the playoffs and perform well here, who won't perform well here because they're not racing for the same thing. Like this is a really unique spot in the playoffs because you have, like, for instance, Kyle Larson. This is something that really kind of blew me away. Post-race press conference for the champion, Kyle Larson is on record of saying like he wants to kick the shit out of everybody this weekend in Homestead. I mean, how much of that you can really take for 100% as they're going to go out for the win, who knows? But that being said, like Larson has zero pressure. Larson doesn't have to worry about stage points. He's incredible at this track. So for me, I definitely warrants him being at the top of the list, and I wouldn't care about what he's done the rest of the season at similar tracks, knowing how good he is here.
Yeah, and to your Larson point, like I mean, I guess for the whole field, really. Like there's a lot of motivation, who's excited, who's racing for what. We talked about Larson a little bit before we recorded, but 2021, the year he won the Cup championship, won the first race of the round of 8, went to another intermediate track in Kansas at that time.
Yeah, he won that one.
Got the win.
Exactly. Like the fact that so I think it's interesting that people are trying to equate what Joey Logano did last year to a Kyle Larson, where Logano does not have the history at these types of tracks where the high line is the preferred line. And also, I don't think Logano and Larson are the same type of racer. Like Logano is very strategic about his stuff. he knew like we need to put all of our eggs into Phoenix. Whereas Larson is just like, put me in the car and I'm gonna race everybody for a victory.
Yeah, and Larson's a lot like he's confident when he goes to Phoenix. He's not stressing about Phoenix right now and like
Yeah,
the things he
exactly.
needs to get in place before then. Like he could like would it like it probably won't happen because there's so much that goes into it. But would it shock you if he just rails off 4 wins? He goes Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, Phoenix, championship.
Not
Like
at
that
all, because we've talked about this with Larson all
yeah.
season, is that if they could just put together a freaking race where they're not having to go through issues and he's not Tokyo drifting coming out of one of the corners like he did last week in
Yeah.
Vegas.
And he still won. That's
And he
crazy.
still won, but like imagine if they're able to put it together for a string of races. I don't think there's anybody in the field that could compete with this team as a whole, with the pit crew, the guy behind the wheel, and the crew chief. Like as a whole, when they're hitting everything on all cylinders, they're like almost impossible to defeat.
And it's really funny. Wormy kind of like sort of mentioned it on the pod on the pre-race poll about, well, if Larson's got somebody behind him that he doesn't think is good enough to compete with
Oh,
him at Phoenix, he might just pull over a little bit or have like a tire issue and let that guy win so he's not so stressed about
I really
somebody.
think
I thought that
he,
was really funny. Obviously, no one expects that to actually happen.
yeah.
But it was kind of a funny aside.
Yeah, no, it was. But yeah, no, like obviously we're getting down to the point where it, it's really hard to bet anybody that's not in the playoffs. And then they're, especially if you go to Homestead, I mean, you really have to account for, can these guys beat both Larson and Tyler Reddick when
Yeah.
factoring in what their odds are? So I don't know. This week is probably going to be a shorter card for me, just knowing that. So
Yeah. I almost did it last week. I almost completely avoided the outright market. I probably should have done it given what happened.
yeah, me
This
too.
may be another week to just avoid the outright market or find unique ways. Mark Harris, Skybox NASCAR mentioned potentially going to just betting Chevy to win because obviously you get some other exposure. Thinking about it now, we'll have to check odds, but maybe just bet Team Hendrick to win because then you get you get a Larson and you get a Byron, and we know even as rough as their season has been, Chase and Bowman both can pop and have a great week and win the race. So like they're legitimate contenders. So that's another way to look at it. So there's always unique ways to attack it. If you haven't bet Larson at this point, it's probably best just to wait. The odds of him just dusting the field in practice and qualifying and being like minus 175 feels really low, but
Oh
who
my
knows?
gosh. Could you imagine if he went off at like a Max
Inside
Verstappen
2 to 1.
style?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
All right. So if not Larson, let's talk about the other options because it feels like there is another, kind of a tier and then another drop off. So Wormy mentioned it. A lot of people are excited about him. Tyler Reddick. I know both of us are holding championship futures. Really hoping he can get to victory lane this week. As long as 6 to 1, his price has gone down a little bit. Um, most 5 to 1 in a lot of places. If he can get in the high line and do what he needs to do, he has a very real shot of winning this race. Martin Truex, iFantasy Race was tweeting about him earlier. In 4 of the last 6 Homestead races, Truex has been top 3. He's been a contender in a lot of these races. I don't know what to do with Truex at this point because we were kind of excited about what he could do last week and he was kind of MIA. The speed that he had through like the first 2/3 of the season seems to be gone. Yet he's being priced really aggressively. Obviously, Denny's right there. Another guy that could be, right there when it matters most. Obviously, runs a little bit of a different race. So at the end of the day, he may be more of a top 5, top 3 car than a winner. And then William Byron, I never count this kid out. He's been absolutely incredible all year long. If he's right there with Larson and Larson can kind of move over and throw the block and let Byron get the win and lock him into the final 4, I don't think that would be crazy. So I guess of these 4 drivers, at current prices, who's the most interesting? Are you just automatically crossing anyone off? Where's your head at?
Yeah, so clearly I like Tyler Reddick going into this week because he is the 1B minus, I guess I would say, because I don't think he's as good as Kyle Larson, but
Yeah.
just on this track and where the preferred line, like it's Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick and then the rest of the field. So
Yep.
I think definitely Reddick is probably the first guy that if you think somebody outside of Larson is going to win, I would definitely go to Reddick. But I have a hard time getting to the 6-1 number because Reddick hasn't exactly unloaded with speed in qualifying the past like month plus. I know he's been good at the 1.5s. He qualified 5th at Kansas. He qualified, I believe it was 3rd at Darlington, which a lot of people are correlating because of the high tire wear.
Yeah.
But I don't know what happened this past weekend in Las Vegas, but they definitely did not have the type of speed that was expected out of this team at a track that they've been really good at a track type that they've been really good at. So I worry about how they're going to unload and whether or not we're going to see that. And with the expectation that Larson is probably going to be fast in practice and qualifying, I don't think Reddick's number is going to get much shorter as long as he doesn't reverse that and be the one that has the best car, because even then he's probably going to 4-1. So I like, it's hard for me to
Especially
get
with
such a short number.
Larson priced the way he is, it's so hard for anyone else to be priced that aggressively. Like
Exactly.
there's going to be fall off.
Well, and that's why it's curious that you have 4 guys inside 8-1. Like, there's no way when you have a guy that's shorter than 3-1 to win a race, you can't bet that these 4 guys are, they have 4 times. Well, I guess it's a little bit more than 3 times better chance or worse chance to win, but they're too short in my opinion. If you have a guy that is that heavily favored.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Byron or Denny could potentially separate themselves, and maybe they're like 5-1. The other guys kind of drift more in the 7-8 range. But I definitely agree with what you're saying. Interesting note on Reddick: he was awesome in terms of total speed at Charlotte, Darlington 2, and Kansas. But then Texas and Vegas the last 2 weeks, he's been like a top 10 car. Instead of like a top 5 car. So that's really, really interesting to see. And over the course of the year, like Auto Club, he was kind of underwhelming. Vegas the first time, Kansas and Darlington the first time, pretty underwhelming in terms, like he's more of like a top 10, top 15 type car. So it'll be interesting to see if he kind of peaked and now he's going back down a little bit. And kind of he's just running out of the end of the year.
Just like I said, man, the 2023, the ebbs and flows of teams and their speed that they've had, like they could be on the downturn for some weird ass reason.
Yep. We'll keep it rolling. We'll talk about the other ones. Obviously, we're gonna keep our actual contenders talk shorter this week because it really feels like it's Larson and then a gap, and then it's Reddick, and then there's a gap, and then there's kind of the Toyotas, and I think the 2 names that could legitimately throw their nose in that conversation. Kyle Busch at his peak is good enough to win this race, has a great track history there. Obviously, the Auto Club composite perfect for Kyle Busch, but he's also, very much like ebbed and flowed all season long. Was great at Auto Club, kind of stunk at first Vegas, had some pops at Darlington. So like he's good at Auto Club. He's good at Darlington in terms of total speed. And then has kind of been like a top 10 car at Kansas, Texas, and Vegas to close it out. So, he's somebody that, we'll see. And I think Ross Chastain is very much in that conversation as well. Looked really good last week. Obviously, even in his rough patches this year at 1.5 miles, at other intermediates with high tire wear, has looked really, really good. So for me, that's kind of where I cut it off at about at the 16-1 price. In terms of outright market, do you include potential winners Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick?
I will say, of the guys that have the longer odds, I definitely think that trio of Fords between Blaney and the RFK guys, if you're going to throw a dart on a long shot, I think it's one of these three drivers just because of what's on the line for Blaney and Buescher. And then Brad Keselowski, look, he's getting a lot of talk this week. He's getting steamed up, and clearly they had something. And if anybody is going to be able to maintain track position or find some sort of speed, it's Keselowski, who has actually been really damn good at Miami throughout his career. And then even when you look at Buescher, he's always performed admirably here, even before RFK had shown this type of, talent wise in terms of just the cars and the equipment. He had been running like near the top 10. So I think Buescher and Keselowski are probably my two favorite dart throws. And then obviously Blaney, who was good here last year before he spun out and brought out that late caution. And they were, whatever people want to say, like, he was good at Vegas. If they didn't suffer that issue on pit road that put them back about 4 or 5 spots, I think he's probably a top 3 car. Maybe he's running up there with Christopher Bell trying to catch Larson at the end, because Blaney's long run speed was incredible in Vegas. And that's a complete 180 from what we saw early in the season. So this team could be vice versa to what we just said about Reddick. He could be on the upswing in terms of equipment and how they're unloading.
Yeah, for sure. I think all of that makes sense. I think if you want to get involved in an outright market, getting in on kind of this area of the board makes sense, because if you expect somebody to pop and actually have a decent week, this could be the way to get that done. I'm also looking like Buescher is interesting, but I also feel like next week at Martinsville might be his best shot to actually get a win and find his way into the Final Four. I know he's somebody that traditionally does better on flatter tracks, on shorter tracks, or he, either that or give him like, super speedways or Michigan or something. But for a guy that like didn't do as well and then really got hot in kind of the section of the season where that doesn't really have a true comp, Martinsville's probably the closest thing to places where he does pretty well. So that could be an interesting way to think about him. And maybe he's more of a guy who just wants to have a really good finish, put himself in position where if he wins the race, all of a sudden he's looking really good for the Final Four. So I'm probably with you. Like, I don't know that I'm betting any of the Fords, but at this point, I think this is kind of the range of the board that, especially if you can get 20-1 on any of these guys, that could be a bet that we're talking about when we record on Saturday, that all of a sudden, they're 14 or 12-1 because it looked awesome in practice and qualifying. And, there is a lot of excitement about the RFK boys, and, see if the buzz plus the backing it up plus the money the books are taking, it could be a recipe for the number to shorten. That being said, at this point, Brian, have you added any outrights to your card?
I have 0. I just have such a hard time getting down on those super short odds on a guy like Reddick.
So if you were to make a bet, obviously we're not doing it because of the odds, but it really seems like it's Larson and Reddick. If not one of those two, is there anyone else close that you're like, I could see myself talking to? Is it one of the Fords? Is it maybe a Toyota?
Honestly, I mean, I feel like Denny is somebody that he's great at Darlington. He's okay here. I'm not going to say he's great at Miami, but he's good here. And, we talked about this going into last week. If anybody has been the fastest car consistently wise, I think it is Hamlin. And, I don't hate the 8-1 that you could get, but again, it's just so hard to get down on any of these guys with both Larson and Reddick at the top of the board. And just the expectation that Larson's going to look great in practice and qualifying, that number is probably going to go to 250. And then you might get like a 8.5 or 9 on Denny if he doesn't qualify.
I'm with you on Denny. I'm a little gun shy after last week. He was my triple gold lock stamp of the week. And
hey, Toyota is actually, they outside Christopher Bell, the Toyotas didn't run all that great.
No, but this is a place, I believe Full Tank with Phil was talking about it. This is a place where Toyotas traditionally have done pretty well, so might be an interesting spot to get involved. So obviously the markets are all over the board. You know, if you're looking at top tens, like Larson's minus 800 to top 10, wild numbers.
That is
But there is a few that I want to get down on, especially at this point of the week. I'm gonna add Kyle Busch to top 10. I expect him to be running well. And actually, let me find the here it is. It's 2015 at Homestead. This is all per iFantasy Race, which is an amazing Twitter follow, full of great nuggets. Kyle Busch has 2 wins, 4.9 average finish, and 8 straight top 10s. Auto Club is probably one of the closest per him. And then, obviously he does amazing there. 4th best total speed ranking at the over the combined races at high wear intermediates and 1.5s in the next gen car. So, I just think all of that leads to Kyle Busch being an elite option as a top 10. He's minus 120. I would grab that sooner than later. I think when we recap to talk on Saturday, that number is much, much longer.
Yeah, I definitely see that, especially with the 8 performed well here in Tyler Reddick's couple of runs. So, we've talked about this at length this season. At tracks that the 8 did well in, it clearly had speed, and then Kyle Busch is probably, in terms of just overall driver, a little bit better than Tyler Reddick. So
Yeah.
I think Busch can put it there. And then for me, the first top 10 bet that I'm going to go to is I'm going to ride the trend of what I'm seeing right now, and that's the Trackhouse guys. So Chastain, top 10, minus 130. I'm going to hit that right now. I expect him to probably unload pretty quick, practice and qualifying, look a little bit better, and do what he doesn't traditionally do, and that's qualify well. And then this number is probably minus 160, minus 170 as we hit Sunday. And then this is a guy who he ran inside the top 5 or near the top 5 all day in Vegas, and he finished runner up here last year. So I think Chastain is definitely on the up.
And I think getting in on him now is smart because while he doesn't traditionally qualify super well, 1.5 intermediates, a place where he does really well. I think 8 of his last 10 have been inside the top 10 at those tracks. So something I really like that number. I'm really tempted to put Keselowski in there, Brian. I don't know how I want to attack him. He's obviously minus 130 here at the top 10. I could go up to maybe a top 5 market. And
I'm just going to admit, I'm going to do everybody a favor, and I'm not going to touch Keselowski numbers so that way everybody can cash when he does well, because anytime I back him, he'll be the first one that wrecks out. So
you're a true hero, Brian. I appreciate you ever so much. With that being said, Brad Keselowski, welcome to the betting card.
Because I will admit, I do expect him to run really well here.
Yeah. And I am a little worried that it's good. We're just doing the Bubba Wallace thing again from last week, but minus 130 is a pretty good price in market, so I kind of like that. Let me minimize that. All right, let's see. So Chase Elliott's even money. I don't hate that. Kevin Harvick. This is the Kevin Harvick memorial race. They're calling it forever, obviously in his honor. Busch even let him put Budweiser on the car to one of his throwback paint schemes. Big week for him. Are we a sucker if we go with the top 10, or should we be like, this is free money? They're going to find a way to get him there. What are we doing?
I'm not touching it.
Okay.
Yeah. If he should top 10 in a vacuum, but I just don't trust SHM.
Oh no, I top 10 in the vacuum.
Their cars are trash.
Yeah, they're not good.
I really don't think, even if they had Kyle Larson driving those things, as good as he is, he wouldn't even be able to manufacture good.
That would be a fun. What we should do for an all-star race is take the back markers and the front markers and
make
swap
them switch
them.
vehicles.
Like BJ McLeod gets the Hendrick car for a week, and Larson jumps in like a Rick Ware vehicle.
It should just be a lottery. They could do like the balls, and
That
they
would
could
be
like pick
incredible.
names out of a hat for
Yeah,
who gets to
this
drive for
week,
what.
Alex Bowman is driving for Spire.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Kyle Larson driving the number 77. That would be fun.
Alex Bowman plus 180 to top 10. We talked a little bit about he's actually obviously of the people that could win this race, he's on the list. He's much lower down. Was good at Auto Club, was good at the Vegas the first time, obviously didn't race Kansas or Darlington 1. Has been not great since coming back, but has been kind of a 12 to 15 in terms of speed. Getting almost 2-1. Should we be considering that? Or is he somebody at this point you're just going to let him go and not worry about it at this point? Like, where's your head at?
Yeah, it's hard to gauge the guys on teams. So like an HMS where they have two drivers. I mean, not so much Larson. So more of like this stuff will be going towards William Byron, but I almost feel like Bowman is the guinea pig of the group because they're using him at test different setups to test different things to make everybody else better and really not give a crap about where he finishes. So he's basically at a disadvantage in terms of when it comes to Sunday.
Yeah. If we're buying the Trackhouse stuff, Daniel Suarez,
I do think the Suarez number is decent. Yeah.
Plus 260. That feels good. Was third in terms of total speed at Auto Club. Has been not great in terms of speed. Was obviously able to get a result this week. I'm going to add the Suarez because if he comes out and looks decent, that number is probably cut in half. It's like a plus 150, 130 kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I did want to hit on the Austin Dillon 4-1 top 10. I know that's been hit pretty quickly this week. You heard Wormy, or if you didn't hear Chris Wormy on the NASCAR Betting Preview Show, he got it at 6-1. A lot of people are in on that. Dillon's been great here at Homestead, but I threw out a couple of numbers that are pretty worrisome if you're looking at the Dillon bet. Is that dude hasn't top 10'd in 11 straight races, and he has 6 top 10s in 2023. 5 of the 6 were either a 9th or a 10th place finish. So it's not like he's breaking that mark by multiple spots. Like, he's barely cracking the top 10. And we're talking about a driver who is sole purpose basically this season has been to help Kyle Busch. And, you know, Dillon has just been a mediocre middle of the pack guy all year. So I can't trust past results from him in 2023.
He is 6-1 on DraftKings. So if you want the full 6, you could go there. Yeah, and I was going to ask you, maybe we should push a little bit, but I think, you know, him hit a great, amazing week for him is like 9th. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, he is
6-1 if you want a lottery ticket, but understand that it's much more of a lottery ticket than anything else.
Yeah, his floor is much lower than what his ceiling is.
And even if he's having a good week, like, he could easily wreck at any point, and then you're finishing 28th, and you're like, why the hell did I bet Austin Dillon?
But by the way, you can get Daniel Suarez at 3-1 on DK.
Okay, let's ride. Actually, let's price shop all this. That's why you price shop this stuff, people. Get the best of the number, because let's see, Bowman is 2-1, so I'll take that. Wait, I didn't bet that. Never mind. But he's 2-1. Let's see, Keselowski and KFB. So Keselowski, you can get minus $130 is the best. I'll take that, and then KFB minus 120. So Caesar's giveth, and Caesar's taketh away.
Yep.
Any interest in the John Hunter experience?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not messing around with
easy. All right, let's look at head-to-heads. Oh, I want to look at 2 more things. So let's go
manufacturer.
So winning team, Hendrick Motorsports. I think you can get Chevy to win the race. Where's Chevy? Do we not have that? We got it.
They might have pulled it because it was getting winning manufacturer. There it is. Yeah, Chevy is even money.
Yeah. So would you rather? So betting Chev, if you're gonna bet even money bet to get some Larson without going all the way in, oh, they rearranged the website. That's what happened, or maybe I just stretched the screen out. Either way, Larson. If you want, I'd rather bet Chevy at 100 than Hendrick at 100.
Yeah, definitely. Because you also open up to Chastain, Bush.
KFB.
Yeah.
That's really it. Maybe Daniel Suarez.
Mm.
Probably not. Top Toyota, Reddick at plus 250 is kind of nice. And actually, I'm going to add that right now. Because I want some Reddick in my life. And I'm worried about Kyle Larson doing Kyle Larson things. So I'm going to take that.
I almost feel like no, can't get there.
So the top Ford market is interesting. There was some booty chatter about that in the comments of the live stream. Busher and Keselowski 225, Blaney 260, but then you get to like Harvick at 475, Logano at 6, and then another massive step.
A bunch of guys that have no business even being listed. Yeah,
what about Austin Cindric 85 to 1?
No chance. Honestly, like in this market here, I think this is probably the best way to go after these guys. Because the Toyotas are probably going to be really strong, and there's a chance that, say, it's like Larson, Byron, Denny, Reddick, Truex, and the top Ford is like 7th or 8th or something, because it's going to be hard for these guys to compete when they really only have 3 drivers that are even remotely possible, in my opinion, to compete for a top 5 at best.
Yeah. And then okay, we covered all that. That's interesting.
Matchups.
Fastest qualifier, Larson.
That's crazy.
Minus 110. Yeah, it should be like 3 to 1.
That's just ridiculous.
Byron at plus 650 is not crazy given what the rest of the guys are priced at. We could do the Chastain thing again at 14 to 1, but yeah, this is probably a market to avoid this week.
So in the last 3 Homestead races, Denny Hamlin actually has the best average starting position, with Brad Keselowski the second best at 6.3 of all the drivers that have raced in the last 3.
Interesting. I don't hate that. Caesars does have a few interesting things. You can get Christopher Bell at 14. There was Byron and Verstappen to win 10 to 1. So, if you look, you can find some boost. This is what I'm betting. Based on what Brian just said and Denny's starting position, I am going to take Denny over Larson.
That's not bad.
In qualifying. Obviously, I think Larson will probably be the better qualifier most of the time, but I'm getting plus 165 to do that. I will take that. I think that's a good number. Keselowski probably between him and Chase. Truex. KFB plus 155. Bell's been really good at qualifying.
Yeah, I'm not fading him at all.
He's somebody that's hard to fade. Denny versus Byron. Do I need Denny to basically pull it or pretty close in order to beat Larson? And then in that case, does he beat Byron? I guess Byron could still pull it. That's the race. That's the race. Never mind.
Yeah. I was just going to say, though, like, I could see Reddick putting it on pole and say Denny finishing second and then Larson third.
Yeah.
Because what if Larson gets into the wall, which he has he's got a track record of doing.
I already added it a different way, but I'm adding Reddick over Truex. Obviously, I like Reddick to be the
Top Toyota.
top Toyota. Yeah. So if I can get plus 105 just for that head to head, I will take that as well.
All right, and then
Bowman over Logano plus 100.
no, I'm not fading that a-hole because think about it. Last year he was focused on Phoenix, so it's like he had no eyes on this track. Whereas this year he's only racing for each individual race. So I think Logano could probably be better than what we think.
Kyle Busch plus 125 versus Chris Bell. I'm a little worried about Chris Bell. I think he might be too good.
I'm adding Daniel Suarez over Eric Jones at minus 115 because I think Trackhouse is better than.
Yeah, I like that. Let's see what other matchups we can potentially wrangle. So, Gibbs versus Logano versus Harvick. I got some Gone in 60 Seconds going on. I'm on the street outside. People are doing donuts. They're very excited about our podcast. Fucking douche nozzle. None of these are any of these jumping out to you as I scroll by. Blaney minus 105 versus Chastain. Jones is minus 105 against Suarez here, so getting him at minus 115 feels nice.
Oh, but wait, but I could get like
Minus
a third of a
114.
point at BetRivers.
Hey,
minus
take your
114.
minus 114. Take what you can get.
That's right, baby.
Okie doke. Anything else we need to look at?
No, I think I'm straight right now.
My card is already a little overextended for what I like anyway, so that's I'm on brand. So let's review. Let's give the people our favorite bet at this point, and we'll go there. So very like placing matchup heavy card. I think for me this week, I don't know if I'll get any outright exposure at all, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting week from an outright perspective.
KFB top 10 minus 120, Brad K top 10 minus 130. I feel like both of those are going to move pretty significantly. Suarez to top 10, 3-1. I just think that's a good number for a guy that seems to be trending in the right direction, and for Trackhouse to be where they are. I'm in on Tyler Reddick this week. I worry about Kyle Larson just dusting the field, so I'm going top Toyota at plus 250, and then Reddick over Truex at plus 105. And then qualifying, I'm just going to see if Denny can beat Kyle Larson in qualifying, and I'm getting plus 165 to do that, so I like that quite a bit. Brian has two and only two bets. Ross, the boss, to top 10 minus 130. I like that a lot as well. And then Daniel Suarez over Eric Jones at minus 114. Brian, Twining is one of your best bets currently on your card, or do you have a third one you're going to sneak in?
Yes, it is, and I'm going to go with the Watermelon Man himself in his home state, mind you, Florida. Top 10. I think he's going to do really well here, and although I say you can't take anything from the spring into this race, when you look at that race, Chastain was really good there. So clearly he's got a handle on this track type, and he's trending in the right direction after a really good Vegas trip.
I like that. I like that a lot. I'm rocking the Trackhouse hat, so obviously I'm on board with that. I'm going to try and lock in some value. I think Reddick is going to qualify really well, and I'm a little worried about Marty's speed. So I'm going to take that plus 105 at this point. I think that flips when we talk on Saturday night. And that number feels really good. So I'm jumping on that. I'm going to grab a piece and see where I can get, put a few units on it, see what we can do. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. If you have thoughts, if you have somebody you really like this week, not named Kyle Larson, let us know down in the comments. Appreciate everybody who's been on board with us all season long. We really have seen our numbers go, and appreciate all the interactions. Appreciate everybody who's helped us along the way. If you want to see more of my face, come join me and Seth Wilcock tomorrow on the back road. I'll be on In Between Media. I'll link that down in the description as well. We'll be talking some betting. We'll be talking some DFS tiers. We'll do a Vegas reaction. There's gonna be a whole bunch of stuff. So probably have some fun, talk a little NASCAR, hopefully give out some winners. We'll see what we can do. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. We will be back. We will record Saturday night, maybe even Saturday day, as us West Coasters are going to be up at 6 a.m. for practice and qualifying.
I love it. I love it.
Fresh pot of coffee, NASCAR qualifying, roll right into Ohio State beating Penn State. Fingers crossed. Setting up for a really nice Saturday. That is Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you next time.